I want to call up all of the ladies on our panel now. Dr. Mo, if you can come have a seat, and also Amy Ciccarelli. We're so honored that you're here with us today. She's going to tell a little bit about her journey with cancer. I'd love for you to go ahead and share your journey, if you would, Amy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Ciccarelli. I'm honored to be here. Thank you to Mrs. Laura Bush and the Laura Bush Foundation, Institute for Women's Health. It's been so lovely getting to know these amazing women and what incredible speakers you are. I have many friends in this room. Some appreciate you being here. I think this is a great education for all of us. I also have breast cancer friends in this room who have been kind of my veteran warriors behind me that helped me along on this journey. And then I also have some friends in this room that were diagnosed after me that are also still on their journey. So there's many people in this room that I think can kind of really relate and understand once you've been diagnosed kind of what happens. I was diagnosed March 23rd, 2022 with triple negative breast cancer, stage 2B. If you're not aware, there's several different types of breast cancers. Triple negative is one of the most aggressive. Unfortunately, if you were to Google it, it's pretty much a death sentence. I do think we've made a lot of progress in the world with treatments, but we have a long way to go. Every cancer journey is unique. I've talked about this before for those that I have a blog, Positively Triple Negative, and I've also done some podcasts for Brighter Magazine, a cancer lifestyle magazine for women, where I've talked about the journey itself and the chemo treatments and everything that you go through. But today, I want to talk a little bit about what we're talking with here today, and that is the screening, the advocacy piece, and then also mindset. Those are the three things that I'd really like to touch on, and I'll try to make it quick. But my mom, the unique thing about my story is that my mom died of breast cancer 4 months before I found my mass. She had been fighting breast cancer for 2 years, when she was diagnosed of August of 2019. It was a hormone receptor positive breast cancer. She was 73, an amazing woman, such a bright light, a go-getter. And I remember the day that she called me and said, I was a few months late in my mammogram, and this was August. And she said, I went in and they found something. I'm going to have a biopsy. They're having a hard time getting it scheduled. It's going to be a couple of weeks. Okay, so then she goes and she gets the biopsy. Mom, what did they say? Well, they said it'll be, take a couple of weeks to get those results back. If I don't get a phone call, everything is fine. If I do get a phone call, then I'll be followed up with next steps. Well, my mom was always so very busy going in all different directions like we all are. And at the 3-week mark, I said, Mom, have you heard back from the biopsy? And she said, no, I haven't. I'm going to give them a call. She calls, the nurse fumbles through the paperwork. Oh yeah, we have your results right here. I'm so sorry to tell you, you have breast cancer. So she goes and, I'm immediately helping her get into, Mom is in a small town south of Dallas, and I'm helping her get into some hospitals in town. And we get in and, this is very early stage, you're fine, go on the trip, go travel. She was going over to Israel with my dad, and they were doing a big trip. And she comes back before she's going to start her chemo regimen. And I pushed for a PET scan. This is not protocol. This is just something that all I knew about cancer is my husband's parents had both passed of lung cancer, and I knew about PET scan regimens. Well, in breast cancer, this didn't exist. This protocol did not exist for early stage. And I pushed and pushed and said, we'll pay out of pocket. We were fortunate to be in this situation to be able to do that. And she was then went from early stage to stage 4 very quickly. It was in her liver. So pivot, don't need the port, need to go on oral chemo. And for those of you that don't know, when you're stage 4, you take chemo the rest of your life. So she, over those 2 years, exhausted through a list of 7 chemos that were approved for her type of breast cancer, and was down at MD Anderson doing clinical trials. It further metastasized, and she was gone at the 2-year mark, and it was devastating. So while grieving and I have both my kids, I have a senior in high school this year and a sophomore, but in this journey of losing their grandmother and losing my mom, and cancer does turn your life upside down. For the caregivers, I believe it's even more difficult than those actually going through it. It's a tough road, but getting that, when I was in the shower 4 months later, the next week I was going to be spreading my mom's ashes over the beautiful blue bonnets, and I noticed way back here a mass, and I thought it was an infected lymph node. I couldn't even imagine that it would actually be breast cancer. But I was on high alert given everything I'd just been through with Mom, and I called my gynecologist that day. I called the office. I said, I have to come in today. And they said, we can't see you today, but we can see you tomorrow morning. And so, but again, they knew my history. I wasn't, if I had called just out of the blue, I'm sure it would have, taken a week or 2 to get in. I really pushed. I need to be seen. So I went in, and she said, okay, it's about the size of a grape. The good thing, it's moving around, but we'll get you in for an ultrasound. We'll call and see what we can do. Within a couple of days, ultrasound happened. I knew immediately. A full team of doctors came in the room. Radiologist sat and held my hand, and he said, I'm very concerned. I was leaving for spring break with my kids and thinking, do I go on the trip? I was a little triggered by Mom going on the trip. Do I go on the trip? And he said, you go on the trip, because when you get back and we do this biopsy, you're going to know in 48 hours, and you're going to hit the ground running. You need this trip. Okay, he was pretty positive. So I go on the trip, don't tell any of the friends and family that were traveling with us. My husband and I knew, and I just had the mindset of enjoy the moment, live it out, let's go. And come back, and the doctor that did the biopsy said, if you get a phone call and you hear my voice, you know it's cancer. If the nurse calls and you hear her voice, you're okay. So 48 hours, I get the call around lunchtime, and I answer, and it's his voice. And I think because of everything I had been through and kind of wrapping my brain around my mom's journey, and I learned so much from her and how to advocate for her health care. And again, we have all the resources and connections to be able to make some appointments happen, and she still didn't make it. And it's made me so angry that I didn't take the time. I didn't cry. There were no tears. I was like, immediately, I think my husband could not believe I was on the phone with UT Southwestern, Baylor, MD Anderson. What do I need to do? How do I get these appointments? You're quoted 4 weeks, 6 weeks out before you can be seen. And you need to get MRIs, and you need to get all of these scans done, and that the scheduling is very difficult. And someone without resources or an advocate or the time or the knowledge to know where to go and make these phone calls, it took everything I had to make it happen. I started chemo 3 weeks from the date of my diagnosis, and that was purely because I knew my risk. I knew that I was fighting for my life. The parallel there is that my mom should have made it. She should be sitting here today. And I'm here today because I learned so much from her. I did 16 rounds of chemo, of the infusion chemo, the hardest ones on the market. I did those, and then I did an additional 4 rounds of oral chemo. My tumor was not responsive to chemo, so I'm no evidence of disease. I'm not yet a survivor. I'm still fighting. I've exhausted the chemos that I can do, and now I'm 2 years later. From diagnosis, I'm 15 months out from my double mastectomy, so that's the point that I was no evidence of disease. But continuing to push and say, what's next? What are my options? I did genetic testing, like Tiara, and my genetic testing I have a great gynecologist who, if you have a family history, she's pushing you into a room and you're doing your next step of genetic testing. It's just protocol in her office. And because of her, I had that done. And that was while my mom was fighting on her journey. My genetic testing showed a 12% overall lifetime risk of breast cancer. 12%. So every doctor, every oncologist I got in front of with her in Dallas and down at MD Anderson said, don't worry, she's over 70. This isn't genetics. This is just over 70. The rates go up. This is what happens. I had questions about myself. I had questions about my daughter, and I kept getting pushed off. I do have the colon cancer gene, and that's what the concern was. So I began the follow-ups for that. My colon cancer gene was in my mom's tumor. So back to research in genetics, there are just some gene mutations and markers that we have as women that haven't yet been maybe connected, or enough research hasn't been allocated maybe to that to understand the link. Now, here we are a couple of years later, and I'm starting to be told, actually, preliminary research is showing that that particular gene is showing up more in breast cancer. So it is quite the journey first to get. You got to have the diagnostics, you got to have the access to get the mammogram. I had a mammogram 6 months before I was diagnosed, and my oncologist said, it takes 1 billion cells to build a tumor. This thing has been brewing for a while. Way back here, this isn't showing on a mammogram. And when Meredith called me and I was introduced to Bexa and got to know these lovely ladies, in hearing about the technology, this is really amazing that this little device can go in all of these areas. I continued in that first 2 months to be put in a mammogram machine. Every place really wanted that thing to fit so they could get, I'd had the MRI and everything, but they kept repeating the mammogram. And I said, you're not getting it in there. It's not gonna fit. And so when hearing about this, it's really remarkable to hear about something that can cover all the different areas. And I don't know, it's just alarming that we haven't come up with something before now, and that the science is moving along is awesome. Now, to the point of, you get your screening, you advocate. Many of you in this room have been on a journey of some sort of cancer. Cancer has probably touched everyone in this room. You learn about advocating for your friends, for your family, supporting them. The last thing that I really want to touch on is mindset. Fearless doesn't mean that you don't have fear. It just means you accept it and move forward. It's scary. I get people that say all the time, you just seem like you're not scared, and that you're just so easy to tell your story. And I really try to put all the positive aspects of cancer out there. And that sounds a little weird, right? I mean, positive aspects of cancer, but I am in the fight for my life. And the one gift, silver lining that I've been given, is that I've been given a perspective, if you haven't had cancer, that, as crazy as it sounds, it is a gift, because I've had to face what my life would be like not raising my children, or being with my beautiful friends, or being with my husband. I've had to really dig deep and think, how am I going to spend these moments? I don't know how long I have. I don't know what's going to happen next. What if it metastasizes? What if I have a reoccurrence? What if the moment that I came out of surgery and I was told your tumor grew? I mean, what? I just did all of this for nothing? It's really hits you in a way that, if my voice and others who have been through it, the things you rush around and that you worry about, your carpool and your, who's going to what party and what things we're involved in, find something that's meaningful to you and something that you're passionate about. I'm here today because I'm so passionate about telling my story to other women in hopes of saving one person's life, of being detected early. I think, I know there are people in our friend groups who are not getting mammograms even. And it's so important to take care of yourself, to take care of your body, take care of your health, and really dig deep and see the perspective in your life. What's important to you, and to me, living is important. And really understanding how we can help other women. Thank you.